plenty of memes out there where it's I love my job, I love my students, and it's like it says so and so 25, and it's like this old wrinkle. This is going slow. All right, let's get started. Sorry, the computer back there. I think the keyboard stuck, so there was some issues going on there. But we started chapter 7 in this book here, the Bible and World History. This is just for people who are joining us on YouTube. In chapter 7, it's called Establishment, Conflict, and Domination. It covers the time period from 400 BC to 1 BC. And what do people typically call those years, 400 BC to 1 BC? Yeah, the silent years, right? So it's kind of it's perceived that God is silent during these years, right? We have no biblical text going on during that time, and so that's why it's called the silent years, or I think it's also called the intertestamental years, I think too. Anyways, in this chapter, we started with the silent years. This is everything going on then. But we're going to take a deeper dive at the Greek Empire, which we kind of started last week with Alexander. Okay? And we're also going to look at the shift from the Greeks to the Romans. Okay? And how all three types of history, which is sacred history, which is from the Bible, secular history, which is like school textbooks, and then redemptive, which is everything that leads to directly leads to God's plan of Jesus coming back. Okay, this is Alexander here, right? We're talking about how he actually pushed a lot of Greek thought and ways around his empire. We briefly talked about how the Peloponnesian War, that was in the last chapter, where Greece, well, not Greece, but Sparta and Athens and all their supporters are fighting each other, but Sparta won. Things aren't going too great, right? There's economic problems, there's food shortages, a lot of fatherless children and lots of widows, right? So it's really down during this time, right? So during this time period, right, the entire country, or this region of Greece, has been suffering the effects of these post-war destruction due to difficult living conditions. Like, for instance, and since a lot of Spartans only knew what fighting was, right? That was their only job, right? They actually became mercenaries for the Persians, who they just fought, a few hundred years earlier to kick them out of Greece. But they actually become mercenaries for the Persians. It's because some soldiers know nothing else than fighting, right? So they just see, hey, I'm going to keep fighting. This is just what seems logical to me. They've been fighting for 30 years, right? So they could be in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, and they're just still fighting because that's all that they know, right? And it seems like the only way that they can actually provide for their families during all this economic stress. Okay, so, but God is not through with Greece. Greece is not over, right? Greece is really just starting. If we look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 39, it says, "After you, another will arise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth," right? So Persia was that second, right, made of silver, right? But now we're getting to the bronze part, right? This is Greece. So we see that Greece actually takes over Persia, okay? But how? How do the Greece take over? Well, we look at Macedonia. Okay, come on now. Macedonia is in the northern part of Greece, so you can see it circled up there. Okay. Peloponnese is the Peloponnesian War, right? That's where Sparta and Athens are, so that's why it was called the Peloponnesian War. Okay. Anyways, they're really kind of Macedonians are seen as kind of barbaric and kind of like not as sophisticated as the Athenians are, right? Or not as strong as the Spartans are. So they're kind of neglected. And so things are stirring up there, right? We see this guy named Philip emerge, who turned Macedonia into a very, very powerful fighting force. He actually unites all of Greece for the first time. Right, Austin? Right? For the first time.
They figured out a really cool way to use their spears.
Yeah. Yep. The phalanx, that's right, the phalanx. And so this is supposed to be Philip. If you ever seen the movie Alexander, that's played by Val Kilmer. So Val Kilmer is Philip, King Philip, right? That's him right there. So Philip has ambitions of conquering the Persian Empire. Okay, who is at the time the leading superpower, right? Greece has not taken over Persia yet, but he was murdered before his plans came through. A lot of different theories, right, of how he was murdered. But it was pretty much in front of everybody. It was like a scene in like one of their little amphitheaters, and it happened in front of everybody, right? But his son, Alexander III, took up his cause, and he would not only fulfill his father's dream, he'd go beyond what his dad was thinking, okay? And he actually helped spread Greek culture throughout the world, okay? So, Alexander was born in 356 BC, okay? And his dad, Philip, hired Aristotle. Remember, we talked about him last chapter, right, with all the reform stuff in Greece. His dad hired Aristotle to tutor Alexander when he was only 13. And so for 3 years or so, he was studying all those things that the philosophers and the sophists were studying, right? Rhetoric, literature, science, medicine, philosophy, okay? All of these things that he was learning, and he thought, this stuff's pretty great. I think the Greek way is the best way. Okay, the Greek way is the best way. So he believed that if the people he conquered would actually embrace the Greek culture, then they'd be better for it, right? They would never want to leave and go back to their old ways of life because the Greek way of thinking was just the best. Does that kind of remind you of something nowadays? Maybe even our own country in some ways, yeah. Anyways, there are just some of the things there. You see some of the philosophers there talking in the Parthenon, so that's their religion, right? You see the arts over there with the vase, and we see mathematics over there. Thanks, Pythagoras, for that, right? So after Philip dies, this is Alexander's father. Okay, he quickly acted to take control of his father's troops. And remember, if you see really fancy words up there, those aren't my words. I wanted to plug those in from the book to make me look smarter. So he took control of the troops to squelch, right, any possible rebellions, to maintain control of the nation. And so Alexander has a whole united Greece behind him. This is the first time ever that they've ever been united. And now he has this huge fighting force in front of him, Persia, right? Persia's not a pushover. Okay, they cover, I think they cover more square miles than the Roman Empire did. Right, this is a huge empire, lots of soldiers. Now it's time to take the fight to Persia. So in 334 BC, Alexander led 42,000 troops into Asia, and slowly, and I'm going to stress, and systematically took over the Persian Empire. Now, I say that because I wanted to focus on two battles here, two famous battles by Alexander. I actually added these in because we had to see how strategic he is and see why is he called Alexander the Great, right? And mind you, he's only in his 20s or 30s at this time, so he's very young. Okay, we're going to first look at the Battle of Tyre, which is in 332 BC, and then the Battle of Gaugamela, which is on October 1st, 331 BC. Okay, so this is the siege of Tyre. Anyone know? We've heard of Tyre, but does anyone know where Tyre is? What it is? Jim? It's along the coast. Yeah, it's on the East Mediterranean. Yeah. But it's also Sidon, maybe? Well, Tyre is an island. So what do you see in this picture, in this artistic rendition of Tyre? Yes, right? Alexander, first of all, Tyre is an island off of the shores of ancient Syria, which is now Lebanon. Okay? And he built a bridge just out of rocks and dirt to raise that fortress. Okay? He built a bridge connecting the mainland to that island. So the Tyrians, though, they did a really good job. They defended with archers, kamikaze fireboats, and they even put out swimmers to cut the anchors on the Greek boats. But still, Alexander, he's too smart for them, right? He sends troops over, he sends siege weapons over this bridge, and after 6 months, he takes over Tyre, right? So you can see here in this picture, that's not a small feat. This is a pretty significant thing to do, building you a bridge like that and then sending your siege towers like that over. This is a while being shot at the whole time. So that's a pretty impressive feat there. Next, we're going to look at the Battle of Gaugamela. This is 331 BC. This is in modern-day Iraq, more northern Iraq. His goal with this battle was to kill or capture Darius or Darius III. Okay, the Greeks are outnumbered here 3-1. Okay, and so again, Alexander he needs to try to find a way to beat this huge army right in front of him, right? So what does he do? He splits the forces. Wonder where he thought of that, right? So he split their forces. He needed to hold defensively on the left, and then he led his cavalry to the right, and concealed among the cavalry were actually infantry. Has anyone ever seen the movie Alexander with Colin Farrell, right? Historians say this is the most accurate battle scene in any movie history like ever, right? It's extremely accurate. Even I think even more so than Saving Private Ryan on D-Day. That's a really accurate depiction too. But They said, especially for ancient battles, this is the one that is the most accurate. Because you can see his cavalry kind of riding to the right, and you see these guys are running. Like they're, man, I ran for a living, but I don't know if I can keep up with horses among there. Anyway, so this is kind of what the battle scene looks like. So he's holding there. So Alexander is the blue on the bottom, and the Persians are in the red on the top. So he needs to hold on the left, right? And while he leads his troops to the right to try to split their forces. What do you think Darius does? Does he take the bait, or does he hold firm in the middle? He takes the bait, right? So you see on the left here, on the right over here, all that cavalry, right, comes in, and cavalry is strong, right? They're kind of like the tanks back in the day, but infantry is going to overwhelm you, right? So he actually surprises the Persians. Yes, 331 BC. Because time goes backwards, BC. Yeah, time goes backwards. We're getting closer and closer to Jesus' birth. Yeah, you're welcome. And so he takes the bait, and the hidden infantry attack the Persian cavalry. And while that's happening, Alexander is able to go back to the gap that was left by the Persian army that led him right to Darius, right to him. And so, of course, Darius retreats, right? And his forces see this and try leaving too, and they are just slaughtered. Like they are just taken out as they're trying to retreat. Here's the artist's rendition of that. You see Alexander there on his horse. His horse is raised up, and you see Darius there turning away like a coward, right? You see that there. So I wanted to show those because he's called the Great for a reason, right? These are just two battles. He had tons of other battles, right? Anyway, so Alexander actually dies in 323 BC. So he didn't die before he was born, Donna, okay? And they don't know if it was either malaria or typhoid fever, but he got a fever somehow, right? But what did he do? He actually brought Daniel's prophecy, right, to fruition, because he conquered Persia, right, which Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar this will happen, right? A third kingdom will rise up as a bronze, right? And that is what the Persians are. They're that bronze part. So again, Daniel 2, verse 39, after you, another kingdom will arise inferior to yours. So Babylon was the gold head, but they're gone, right? After all the writing on the wall, right, the Persians came in and took over Babylon, right? But then Persia is taken over by the Greeks, Alexander the Great, right? So we kind of see here that God uses secular figures to fulfill his prophecies, right? To fulfill what is supposed to happen, right? Any comments or anything before we go on from here? Nothing? Jim? Yeah. Mm. They just look at all these different writings from the past, from different sources, and The second part? Yeah, yeah. They said the way that the movie scene was in Alexander was the most accurate of any like ancient battle movies back in the from. That's what they say because a lot of people like to Hollywoodize it, right? But they were pretty accurate to what actually happened. So, all right. Anything else? Any rude comments or anything? Donna, any rude comments from me yet? I know Danielle does, so I'm going to ignore her. Yes. No. Yeah, remember, it goes backwards. Time goes backwards in BC, right? It's pretty early, yeah, pretty early. All right, so Alexander, catch up here. All right, so Alexander said he was going to do it, and he did it, right? He conquered, after nation that he conquered, he spread Greek culture, right? He spread the Greek language, the Greek Greek education and Greek philosophy and Greek thinking, right? And even the Greek writing system all over the conquered world of his, right? This is known as Hellenization, right? Because Hellas means Greece, okay? So they're trying to Greekify everything, right? That they conquer. Actually, in ancient times, you actually see even in close to like Central Asia, Greek named things, which I'll get to that here in just a little bit. Okay, but again, he thought that the Greek way should be the standard throughout Asia and the Middle East, all of his conquered area, right? He conquered from Egypt all the way to pretty much India, right? All of that. And what's really cool is that the apostles were able to write down all of Jesus's teachings and what happened using a common language. And what language was that? Greek, right? So they wrote things down in Greek because that was a common language, or kind of a lingua franca, right, of the day, and that even people even during the Roman Empire, people could still read it and understand it, right? That's sacred history right there, right? So, for instance, this is called Papyrus 46. This was written sometime between 175 to 225 AD, okay? AD. So this is actually a page from the Greek New Testament. This here contains 2 Corinthians 11:33 through 12:9. So this is actually one of the most complete editions of the New Testament. So you see it, you can't really see it, but it's all in the Greek language. I thought that was pretty neat, right? All right, so this is our second question. What are some of the contributions Alexander the Great gave to the future advancement of the gospel? Language, right? Greek language. Yes, okay. I did not look that up. Okay, go ahead. Okay. So they wrote it in the Koine Greek, so that way everybody, anybody could. Okay. Okay. So Koine Greek is the more common language that anyone spoke. Greek that we kind of think about is kind of the more educated, okay, higher up people. Okay. All right. Gotcha. Anybody else? What else did they? What else did he do to help the future advancement of the gospel? Being able to travel to other countries. Sure, right? Yeah. You can now communicate, right? Anybody else? Hmm. Yep. You're getting ahead of me. Yes, but yeah, he's right. Which I'll get right into that right now. Okay, so so Alexander dies, right, or he is dying. Uh, Unfortunately for him, God doesn't need him that long, right? And so he wanted to conquer India, but they're so far from home, right? They're, I don't know, probably thousands of miles away from home. And his troops are like, look, we're done. Like, we're done fighting. We fought all this time for years and years. We're done. We want to go home. And so while he was away from home at one of his capitals, okay, in Central Asia, Alexander gets sick with a high fever after going to a private party. Obviously, he went out during COVID time. Okay. No, seriously, they think either malaria or typhoid fever is what gave him this high fever. But it became stronger and stronger, and he actually soon was unable to speak. He was just laying there in bed, surrounded by his leaders. Okay? And he did not designate a successor to the throne. So what do you think happens next? Huh? What about the generals? Yeah, the general's like, no, he'd pick me. No, he'd pick me, right? And so they're all fighting over it. I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. I did this. No, I did this, right? So his empire now is split up into 5 different regions and ruled by a regent because his son was too young. And then 4 of his top generals took over their own regions. Okay, the regions fought one another to expand their own borders until about 30 BC, and Alexander's great empire quickly disintegrated into smaller empires that constantly fought to be the most powerful. Right. So this is kind of what the map looks like now for the Alexander era, right? It has come to an end. We're going to focus on Ptolemy, just like Mike was talking about, and Seleucus. He is over there on that big portion over there in Asia, okay, to the right. Okay, so again, we're going to focus on 2 powers that rose from Alexander, okay, and they are significant to understanding both sacred and redemptive history. So first, we're going to look at Ptolemy, or Ptolemy Soter, okay. So he is a former general of Alexander. He controlled the region of Egypt, okay. And he gave himself the title of Soter, which means savior. So he's the savior for Egypt. He strongly supported Hellenization, or kind of turning everything Greek, right? And he made the capital of Egypt Alexandria, which is that little red circle up there, right on the coast, right? So, like Mike was saying, he founded a library, right? And this is where they started to collect books for this library. I'm guessing it was very huge. We don't have anything today on it because it was destroyed, unfortunately. But it became the center of scientific research and contained the best collection in the world of Greek and Roman papyri, writings, right? Because what they would do, every time that a new ship would come in, the scribes would go ask these sailors, hey, can we borrow these writings here so we can copy them and put them into our library? Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. So this is why this place was like an internet hub, right? It's just full of this information. And yes, eventually he does bring down, which we'll get there, he does bring down Hebrews, right, from Israel to translate the Bible and things like that. Okay, so he also built one of these 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Okay, this obviously allows ships to travel the shores at night, right? So here's where we have many Jews are now migrating to Alexandria during Ptolemy's reign. Okay, 40% of the population was Jewish around the height of Ptolemy's reign. Okay, and then due to Hellenization, many Jews actually kind of forgot their Hebrew language. They just only spoke Greek. So it was very necessary for Greek translations of Hebrew scriptures. And tradition, Mike was saying this, tradition says that 70 trusted scribes translated the Hebrew into Greek. And this is where the name Septuagint comes from. Is because 70 is that's 70 in Greek. So Septuagint, or the Septu, is 70 in Greek. They also translated other Hebrew texts, like some of the what are they called? Yeah, Apocrypha books, like the Tobit and Sirach and 1st, 2nd Maccabees. Those are also translated from Greek into Hebrew. So Ptolemy Soter's rule over Egypt lasted from 332 to 283 BC. And Ptolemy's son, his name is what? Ptolemy, right? Ptolemy II Philadelphus co-ruled for the last 2 years of his father's reign and then succeeded him once he got too old or once he died. So Ptolemy I Soter's dynasty went unbroken until the famous queen, Cleopatra, lost power to the Romans. All right. Now we're going to look a little bit here because we don't have a ton of time left. The other power that rose out of Alexander's time, the Seleucids. Okay, so they arose and from Alexander's empire, and that was significant to understanding for sacred and redemptive history. Again, this is the Seleucid Empire. So we see Ptolemy actually was kind of trying to help the Jews in a way, right? Because he's actually translating Hebrew texts and Hebrew writings into Greek, right? So we'll see what the Seleucids do. Okay, so Seleucus, so from 358 to 280 BC, ruled over the old Persian Empire, okay, except Egypt, ranging from India to Turkey, modern-day Turkey, and from Ararat to Israel. So we kind of get north, south, east, and west here of the Seleucid Empire here. Yep, there's a map right there. All of that. All right, so though much of the Persian infrastructure is used, okay, They still are strong supporters of Greek culture, so they are pushing Hellenization, right? Greekifying everything. They built the cities around the Greek polis model, which is like you kind of have a big city center, and then with walls around it, and then you have the smaller little villages and towns surrounding it. That's kind of the Greek polis model. So they built gymnasiums, they built amphitheaters, they built town squares, right? But the upper class, okay, are still Hellenistic in their customs and their thinking. Okay. They never established a place or like a capital like Ptolemy did, right? They don't have a place like Alexandria in the Seleucid Empire, okay? They're plagued with lots and lots of fighting pretty much all the time, right? Just a lot of people surrounding them want to take them over. And even Ptolemy was trying to fight and conquer portions of their empire to expand his, right? And they are known for using elephants in their army. That's why I have a lot of elephants in their pictures, right? So Antiochus IV, Epiphanes, rose to power from 175 to 164 BC. He is known for really, really, really hating the Jews. He does not like them. Okay? So you see Ptolemy, who's actually translating Hebrew text into Greek so they can read it. You have one guy who's on the opposite end. He just hates them. Ptolemaic and Seleucid empires repeatedly battled over control of Israel. And the Ptolemies usually controlled Israel, but at this certain time when he is in charge, Seleucids control Israel. So Antiochus also invades Alexandria and lays siege to the city. But the rising empire is like, hey man, you got to stop. All right, this is we kind of need this place to be thriving. So he did what they asked. He did what they wanted because he wants to stay on their good side, right? I think he can kind of see that these guys are going to be the real deal, right? So he is actually on his way back home, and he decided to attack Israel and Syria to let out some frustration. Okay. So to solidify his control, Antiochus instituted strict Hellenistic policies to exterminate the Jewish religion. So he occupies Jerusalem in 168 BC. He defiles the temple by slaughtering a pig on its altar and putting up an altar to Jupiter, which is that's actually a Roman god, right? That's like the Roman god of Zeus. Okay, he prohibited temple worship. He forbade circumcision, which is a Jewish custom, right? He sold thousands of Jews into slavery. He destroyed copies of Scripture and slaughtered those who had copies of Scripture, and tortured Jews in hopes of renouncing their religion. So pretty much the opposite of what Ptolemy, right? Ptolemy was bringing Jews in and translating their stuff, but the Seleucids, right, Antiochus is like trying to get rid of them, right? So he also raided and robbed all the gold and silver from the temple to satisfy his own, wants for treasure and gold and stuff like that. So what does this seem like to you? What does that sound like to you? What he's doing to these Jewish people? Today, yeah? I thought of one certain time period. This guy, right? That guy? Yeah. The Nazis, right? Exactly. So kind of the first, Hitler type of person. And I'm just going to, we'll show this for next time. We're going to talk about the Maccabean revolt next week. And how did the Jews stand up to the Seleucids during this time? So we will stop right there. Thank you.